I know it's called Scourge and everything else, but 240 platinum? That's just insanity when you think about the fact that it only has 60 corrosive damage, the Javlock has 235 and a 20% crit chance, and a 20% crit chance on its throw. Though, nope, it's got 300 heat damage on its throw, this only has 50. The blueprint for it, of course, is inside of the Tenno lab here, and despite the fact that mine hasn't finished actually researching at this point, the build cost is 15,000 credits, 2 nitin extract, 2,500 circuits, 350 oxium, and 2,500 polymer bundles. This thing, well, it comes with a V and a dash on it, which is really useful for a change, especially after the fact that Nell came with nothing. The trick to this weapon is throwing it is supposed to basically magnetize the enemies so they have bullet attract on them. So let's select all of them, make them level 100 just because they'll survive a little bit longer, and go basically throw this on the floor. Oh, not what I want to do. And in theory, bullet attract should work if I don't aim at them. And nope, that didn't do much. Bullet attract again. Nope. Huh. Nope, definitely is bullet attracting, but it's not as dramatic as expected. I mean, throwing it through the enemies seems to be a better way. It does have 100% accuracy, so putting heavy caliber on this was effective, but like weapons of this type of the past, this might possibly be changed, because having that on there didn't really affect the bullets at all. They still seemed to go where you were aiming. There was a little bit off compared to what they were beforehand, but considering this thing had travel time on its rounds, I didn't expect it to do that much to it, which it didn't, which was pretty nice. But if they do change that, so heavy caliber does affect accuracy a lot more, this thing's, well, taking heavy caliber off and putting something like speed trigger? No. It is speed trigger, isn't it? The fire rate on this. Because it does have that charge rate, the big problem with actually having speed trigger on this is it empties that 20 magazine really quickly, and the reload on this is fairly slow. I didn't actually expect to, but I dropped 3 former in this, a dash and 2 Vs, because of heavy caliber. If I wasn't putting that in, I wouldn't have formatted the second dash onto this, but it needed a V for split chamber. Firestorm does work pretty effectively on this, and I just basically used the dual stat elemental mods to increase the corrosive damage, as well as dropping infested clip and stormbringer, which also increased corrosive damage on this. But Firestorm works really well on this, because its primary fire mode does have a radius to it exploding on the floor. It's not that big to begin with, but that also increases the radius of the whole bullet attract thing. It has 17,500 corrosive damage and 3,700, and yeah, those stats there, I mean, this thing should, when thrown at an enemy, pretty much kill them instantly, even with 87.1% status. But its crit, well, it's 4, so the rules crit out instantly. But I found using its primary fire mode more effective than using its secondary, which, as I said earlier, I didn't expect to former this thing 3 times. I put 1 on and went, okay, I've got a pretty decent, oh, I wonder, and ended up putting 2 more former into this. I don't regret that. It did make it much more powerful than it was with just the 1 in there. Putting heavy caliber in turned it into a completely different weapon and made it much better, but it's not really that effective against some of the higher level stuff, which is why I'm hoping the fact that heavy caliber doesn't affect it that much won't be changed, because weapons like this, sadly, they're just, it's basically a status based weapon, because even its normal fire mode is only a 2% crit chance. It's a purely status weapon, so it kind of needs heavy caliber in there to make this thing effective. Of course, the build I have on this isn't really that effective. I basically just went for straight out corrosive with the build I have on this. If you were to take the dual stat mods and change that for radiation or viral or gas or even magnetic, depends what faction you go against. Not only are you increasing its base corrosive by having that on there, but you can also add things like viral to half the health or radiation to get them to attack each other, which is where I think this weapon comes into its own. The status is not amazingly high. You can get it higher if you were to take out the 2 dashes I put on there and go for all 4 of the dual stat elemental mods, but I think the 87.1 it has was just high enough that if you could put viral and radiation on this, which is something I used to run a lot, you can half their health and get them to attack each other. So radiation and corrosive will not completely strip their armor off, though you can put, was it adhesive blast on this, and it does this weird thing where it sticks the corrosive proc to enemies, and apparently it can slowly reduce the enemy's armor rating to 0. I couldn't get this to work because every time I threw it at an enemy it went through them, but that's a really good aspect to this. Personally, I didn't throw Adhesive Blast on, I went for Firestorm to increase the radius. The travel time on the shots were quite annoying, but once you get past that and you figure out you got it forward aim and you can actually shoot at a door before an enemy comes through it, it became fun to use. It's not high-end type weaponry, but it was still fun nonetheless. Anyway, we'll leave this off here for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch yous next time.